Tax reform. Let's bring in Chief Deputy Whip and Financial Services Vice Chair, Congressman Patrick McHenry. It's great to have you here, Congressman. I'll tell you what I'm looking at right now. I don't know if you can see this over here, but I just saw this. It's in the Hill. The Hill I kind of like. I don't mind the Hill. It's not as bad as Politico. Sort of. They try to pretend they're somewhat unbiased. Anyway. We had Gary Cohn and Speaker Ryan on yesterday, and everybody's playing nice. Like the House, Speaker Ryan talking about, oh yeah, the Senate, you know, we're optimistic, we're hopeful. But this, I think, this is what I kept trying to get him to say. Distrust of the Senate grows within the GOP, and what they're basically saying is in the House, there's a real concern that some of these senators are acting on their own because they're not up for re-election in 2018. And the ones that are cutting and run, or cut and running because they've got some. But listen to this. Close to the House GOP said, colleagues are frustrated with a handful of senators overruling the will of the entire House. And they have a picture here. It's McCain talking to Susan Collins. I mean, that's a real concern, is it not?
It's not new.
I know it's not new, but nothing's gotten done, and why do we think this will be any different this time?
Well, no, the running joke in Washington is that the House and the Senate have one thing in common. We've got about 98 useless members. But it's not new. This is traditional. The Senate's process is so jacked up.
So you're trying to suck up to the Senate now by saying that was a nice comment. That's not going to endear you. They're going to say McHenry was just on where.
It's fine. It's fine. Look. The deal is their margins are so tight over there. McCain's health, it takes him in and out of being there. So you're working with 52 on a good day. Republicans. You don't have moderate Democrats like you did at the beginning of the Bush administration. So our track record on this is not recent. So we just went through 3 two-term presidents. The last time that happened was, any guess?
Bueller.
No,
Bueller.
Jefferson, Madison, Monroe. Last time we had 3 two-term presidents. So you can check it. You're Googling it now. So,
no, I'm not. I'm reading this article.
So the last example of this was 2001 with the Bush tax cuts. The last example of this was 2001 with Jim Jeffords, who switched and partisan control flipped in the Senate. The Senate is always really precarious and difficult. Everyone, my colleagues in the House, we all like talking about the Senate rules. They have to have 60 to do stuff. Right. They can't get 50 to do stuff.
But that's the problem.
Now.
Because you should be able to write. Republicans got a Republican president. You should be able to write bills that get passed because you got the majority in the Senate and you got the majority in the House, and you may not always have that.
By the way, the House has not been easy to pass legislation.
They did it, though. They finally did it, though.
I mean, look, we don't get style points for health care.
Yeah.
We don't, because we fell on our faces publicly. But we did get it done. We did get health care done, and that was in June. So, look, we did our job in the House. We actually have a great production out of the House, more than the historical average of bills that we've been able to pass to the Senate. And actually, so far to date, this president signed more bills into law than Obama did.
I can understand your point. My guess would be is that in the House, you are much safer in your district. The districts tend to be either very right or very left. They've been drawn that way. In the Senate, you are responsible for an entire state. And it's harder to go to one extreme or the other. The argument might be that the parties have gotten more extreme, and it's harder to find middle ground, whereas the Senate is kind of set up to find middle ground.
Sure, but that would be me as a public policymaker getting an excuse. Right? Why did you fail?
As an outsider, I kind of see that.
You know, things are hard. Well, look,
there's much less common ground.
You just want a simple majority? Is that what
can't get that
if I wanted to actuate my opinion, I would run for Senate. I'm content with my 2 senators. I'm not running for Senate. I've got enough to deal with before I start meddling with the Senate. But let me just get back to this, okay? So, yes, the Senate has its challenges. We have challenges in the House. Our majority is built around people that are sitting in Clinton or Obama-won districts. So we have our challenges, and we're up every 2 years, and we're going to be more easily punished than the Senate. In the Senate, their problem is not with those that are up next year. It's those that are up in 3 years or 5 years. That's where they have these real challenges.
The state deductibility, that already...
Let's bring it back.
Already the Republicans said they're not going to, the ones in the high state, in New York and other places, they're already saying they're not...
If you'd asked me this question last week, if I was here last week and said, tax rollout next week, what's going to be the issue the day after the rollout? The day of the state and local taxes.
Yeah.
1986, what was the issue? State and local taxes. Why? It's a whale of a deduction. It's $1.2 trillion. It is equivalent to the border adjustment tax in terms of revenue.
People are saying that's starting to look good again.
Well, look, it's all choices. And what people are judging, and I heard Ed Rendell on this interview, which let me just tell you, Ed is reading from the 86 tax reform talking points that he dusted off, or the 2001 tax cut discussion. He just dusted them off. It's not new. It's really not new. And actually, 86, the same issues that we're wrestling with were the same issues.
So what do you think should happen?
On tax reform, state and local?
On the state and local.
So state and local, let's look at the modeling. Are you better off or worse off under our plan? That's the net effect. It's not a deduction that matters to you. It's the net effect of what we're doing.
But we don't know yet because we don't have enough details.
Right.
That's where, because literally we've all been sitting around trying to figure it out.
Everybody's done the math, though. Everybody's assuming because of the math I'm doing in my head still says you're ahead. But I haven't done it in detail yet, but maybe we should ask the woman from E&Y when she was here earlier.
So some of the math that's been put out there thus far suggests that if you were in New York, a middle-class family in New York, you're actually doing worse. You're not doing any better.
Right. And that is without looking at the details of the plan.
Okay.
So we laid out the top line, and we in the House are going to write the details of that plan. We learned the lessons of health care. We learned the lessons of health care. We had a full-day retreat going through the details of tax. That takes a lot of caffeine to keep people hyped for that. But it was important. We went through the top line. We determined rate with the House, the Senate, and the White House, similar to what we had with health care. But the difference on this is we're going to write the details in conformance with our votes and our needs and our desires in the House. So the top line in the discussion of mortgage interest deduction, Dan, I think you care a little bit about that. But
really
not as much as you think, actually.
Then state and local, charitable. Those are the only things we really mention for the individual.
Charitable is a big concern because people have to live in a house, right? You're not going to. I still don't think most people are going to say, I'm going to buy a house because I'm going to get a tax deduction, okay? Now, you still don't want to get rid of the deduction if you don't have the net rates come down like you were saying. But charitable deductions, people don't have to give charity away every year, right? They don't have to.
Get up into that entire industry.
Along those lines,
concern.
we keep mortgage interest deduction, and we keep charitable, and we do away with state and local, just to be clear.
Corporate pass-through. People argue it is the great giveaway to the wealthy in this instance because 98% of small businesses are making $100,000. Small business owners making $100,000 or less. They're already at 25%. So it's the top 2% that actually becomes the beneficiary. Isn't there a way, in terms of the pass-through issue, to either create sort of blocks so that there's sort of caps on that?
Yes, and the way we're going to do this and the details of the pass-through rate, that is where you'll actually see the real modeling, which means an individual has to take a certain amount as income, and the rest can be the pass-through income.
Okay.
So
the big talking point that we keep hearing when people are complaining about it, you think is unfair and will go away once you've
in a couple of weeks they can judge it for what it's really worth.
Okay.
And you can actually judge 20% corporate versus 25% pass-through and see why that modeling does make sense.
Okay. That's going to happen?
It is.
That's
going to
great, by the way,
happen.
if you actually
And it's going to happen
this year?
This year, and if I had to pick a date, December 24th.
And the Republicans in New York and California and Connecticut and New Jersey will vote with you?
Yes, once you see the modeling around state and local, the state and local tax issue and the modeling for their constituents on this, you see real families that are going to have real benefit and they're going to be net better off, then a deduction will not matter so much as a rate reduction.
Great.
Congressman, thank you.
Patrick McHenry.
I just like that. I like saying that, right? give me tax reform or give me death.
Yeah, it's just President Trump told me he would have gotten elected 8 years before if he had my name. Which is a little bit of a slam because I'm just in the House,
Yeah, exactly. For now.
When we come back, training cells to fight cancer, a special CNBC Modern Medicine report is right after this.